people are having a lot of feelings of various kinds. And so I just want to impress upon people that feelings are just feelings. And that should be both a comfort, but it's not a comfort to the part of ourselves that wants to say, I am angry, I am fearful, and build an identity around that. So, but feelings are just feelings. And so if we can feel into the living sensation of our body, where life is always living through us, different traditions have different ways of seeing that, but it's a very neutral and powerful energy. And that aliveness is really what is, like I said before, life is change. And so it's like almost like, to me, like a large river of life. And it's like if we just get in that and we're in that, it has the intelligence to help us move forward in the right way. If we're trying to figure everything out in our head, it's a lot of resistance to that river. The phases are about the movement of energy. And so if we look at the more classical models, it's important to think about it as phases, as movements of energy. So if you think about it as something really static, it's not as easy to work with. So the wood phase or the spring phase, I'll just go through it quickly, is like the birth of yang, right? So if we look at human and nature integrated, which is what Chinese medicine is based on, or human and nature are one, they're a mirror of each other, whatever. If you look at what happens in springtime, things are becoming alive, the seed has bursted out into the soil and is growing. And so the nature of wood is to expand and grow. So we started in spring with this birth, and then it's at full bloom, and now it's starting to collect in the fruit. Okay, so it's got this kind of slight condensing, but it's still warm and nurturing kind of energy. So fire flares up, we did in summertime, and then earth is like the mother of all things, basically. It's that very nurturing, nutritional kind of energy. And then we move into fall, which is the lung and the metal element. And so then the trees start to lose their leaves. So that idea of that life that was there in the spring and summer and fall, fruit starts to fall from the trees, the leaves start to fall from the trees. So that feeling of life is like going down to the ground again to get basically recycled. And so there can be this there is a downward movement, and that energy is starting to condense. No, this is all part of the life cycle, but a lot of people don't like this part of the year, but some people love this time of the year. So you'll find people love different times of the year because of their energetic tendencies or energetic needs. So yeah, so it's going down. And then in winter, the energy is really condensing into the seed again. It's really cultivating. So if you look at winter in a snowy climate, everything looks so-called dead or yin on the outside. You know, the deciduous trees have lost their leaves. They look like little skeletons. You know, it's snow, it's cold, it's quiet. But underneath the ground, things are cultivating again, right? Okay, so I think then we can move into what's happening right now. So if we look at when it started, is the Chinese New Year is a lunar New Year, or lunar calendar. So it's a little bit different than the Western calendar. So we begin spring in the Chinese calendar around the Chinese New Year, which is end of January, early February. So that was actually the start of spring. And then the peak of spring is when we so-called start it in the Western calendar. So the end of March. So right now, so when this pandemic started with the lockdown, we're in spring, we're still in spring, and now we're moving toward summer. So this is very important. So if you think back about the wood energy that's been going on during this springtime, is that it requires of us to burst forth from the seed of what's been cultivating in winter, and to grow, and like I said, to be bent and straightened, so to be flexible. But we've got this strong yang energy that's trying to grow. And then often what everyone is feeling to some extent is that because this illusion that we're so-called trapped inside, and I call it an illusion because our mind is infinite. We can go all kinds of places. We can have all kinds of beliefs about what's actually happening. And so what many people are feeling because they're inside and because of the kind of cultural norm of speaking that's going around, which is I'm trapped inside, I'm trapped inside, I'm trapped inside. And no one's letting me do what I want to do. So you get some people who are coming up against that with that wood energy. There's a lot of anger going on right now, especially in social media, and that I've noticed. I'm like, wow. But it makes sense with what's going on, is that people are coming up against that and saying, you can't tell me what to do. And so that's kind of that wood energy that's pushing against the boundary, the perceived boundary. So for that kind of reaction, what we can do to kind of remedy that is to think, it's almost like a chick that's in a shell and it's about ready to burst out of its shell. It feels really constrained. You can imagine it feels constrained. It's been eating this yolk its whole life. Oh, things are so good, things are so good. And then it's hitting the top of the shell and it's in its own poop and all this stuff. And it's just like something has to give, right? Something has to happen. And what people will tend to do is they'll tend to waste their energy on anger. So this is this concept of growth, okay? So personal growth, growth in life, that is what life is. So if you're coming up against that shell and you get angry, it's like you waste a lot of energy and then you're down, but it feels more comfortable because you're not right up against the shell anymore, but you've also not done the work of breaking through it to something new. So the chick breaks through that shell to a new world, which is, it expects to be like what's inside the shell, but it's something totally different. Mm-hmm. So that concept of growth is inherent to life. It's inherent to our lives. When we resist that growth, we're often getting angry and irritated. So any of these elements, they have a natural movement. The liver has this spreading out and growing kind of energy. If it feels thwarted in that, it's going to feel irritated and angry. The way we can also see it, the way we can use it is, instead of getting angry and wasting a bunch of energy, is who would I be if I were bigger than this? And I don't mean bigger in terms of like putting someone else down to be bigger than them, but to be like, if I could be more expansive, if I could grow from this, to pose these questions like, then what would happen? And so you're opening yourself up to something beyond yourself and opening to the unknown. And like the chick in the shell, the unknown is beyond the shell. And that's really part of life as well. And this is really something that I think people are being challenged with right now because there's so much unknown. But to open to it is going to be much better for you and much better for your health and your immunity and all of these mental health and all these things. And to really put that energy inside. So the tendency of wood is to push it outside. And the tendency can be to blame and to be angry when it's out of balance. Instead, we can cultivate more of that metal energy, which is the inside, which is to put that reflection inside and not to blame ourselves or shame ourselves, but to reflect inside. Like, what's needed? How could I be bigger? What can I do with all of this creative energy? So the wood is very much all this creative energy, this kind of, you think animals mate during this time of year, there's just all this creation going on. And so people are feeling that and they're misinterpreting that energy, or they're using that energy to be angry with, and it's because it's a cultural norm, it's their habitual reaction. But it hurts other people, and that's maybe not necessarily where we want to be, and it hurts them too. And instead we want to, what can we do with this creative energy, right? So a lot of us are starting projects, figuring out how now we're going to shift and change to like a different way of expressing our profession, et cetera, et cetera. And there's still a lot of us who are stuck in this isn't happening. I don't want this to happen. And coming from a place of love and wanting other people to thrive, which is a big part of that wood energy too, benevolence, kindness, love is the good expression of that. It's like, how can I take this creativity and benefit others with it? So this disease started around the spring season, around Chinese New Year in China. It's when we've got it over here and around the world, they're quarantining, which is creating this kind of tension in people because they feel all that young energy needs to come out. And what we really need to be concerned with now, in my opinion, is that if you understand the 5 phases, you understand that if the liver is imbalanced, it's going to affect its child, fire. And we're moving into the fire season. And the fire season has a lot to do with relation to other people. And this is a big theme right now, for sure, in the so-called social isolation, which really it might be better called physical distancing, because people hear that social isolation and it's and their friends are saying, oh, it's so hard, I can't get hugs, and I can't do this, and I can't do that, and I can't see somebody. And when we're doing that, we're reinforcing that same feeling. It's like eating food. That's what we're taking in. If that's what we're taking in and identifying with, then it's only going to make more of that. And the trouble with this as we move from wood to fire is that got all that agitation and frustration and stuck feeling. Then as the phases happen, it's like a spotlight's being put on that organ. So the springtime, it's like for everybody, like this big spotlight's being put on their liver energy. Where liver energy, like, woo, it's going to do that same thing with the heart coming soon. And so it's like to really preserve your own mental, emotional health and those of others and create that. The question is coming, how can we create that intimacy and relating with other people? How can we move in that direction now so that when the summer is at its full peak, which is the end of June, that we can really be nourished by the summer energy and not still be going, but I can't go to the beach, but I can't see my friends, but I can't do this and I can't do that. That can't, it just does that. So if you find yourself saying, I can't, you can take more responsibility for our feelings and our thoughts by saying, I don't, or I won't do this. So it's like, I can't go to the beach. Well, I don't go to the beach. So if I can't go to the beach, there's still that sense of like a certain kind of victimness, a victim to outside circumstances. And in the work that I do, it's getting away from that victimness, because then you're not really in true choice and you're not really moving into your life and growing and changing. And so you could say, well, I don't go to the beach. And you could still make up stories about why you don't go to the beach, but it's not as direct as being like, I can't, because inherent in I can't is someone's not letting me. So if we can start to change those thoughts inside that are running through our heads and what's coming out of our mouth, certainly first what's coming out of our mouth and then what's going through our head, we actually start to change. That's how we actually change our reality in some sense.